Review, a daily program that delves into the latest and most significant economic stories. From stock markets to currency news, Business Review covers the most up-to-date stories in the global financial world.
Britain's Finance Minister Rishi Sunak announced on Wednesday an extra £750 million of funding for frontline charities so they can continue their work during the coronavirus outbreak. The Finance Ministry cited hospices and charities supporting domestic abuse victims as examples of charities that will benefit from the new money. The funds include £360 million to be directly allocated by the government to charities that provide key services and support vulnerable people. Another £370 million will be directed towards smaller charities operating in local communities. The Finance Ministry said the government will also match whatever the public donates in a BBC charity appeal on April the 23rd.
China Federation of Logistics and Purchasing announced on Tuesday the Purchasing Managers' Index, or the PMI, for global manufacturing in March stood at 47.8%, up 0.4 percentage points from the previous month, but running below 50% for 2 consecutive months. It is believed that the main factor behind the slight recovery of the index is the accelerated recovery of China's manufacturing sector and the apparent recovery of the PMI for China's manufacturing sector. Regionally, the impact of the spreading COVID-19 epidemic on the global economy is gradually emerging. The manufacturing PMI of Asia, Europe, the Americas and Africa are all below 50%. The threshold of PMI is usually using 50% as the cut-off point for economic performance, according to experts. If PMI above 50%, it reflects the overall economy is expanding. If less than 50%, it reflects the overall economy is in recession.
The normally bustling streets and beaches of Acapulco were empty on Monday, April the 6th because of a decreased tourism amid the COVID-19 outbreak. Restaurants and hotels in Acapulco closed their doors after the Mexican government declared a health emergency and quarantined the country until April the 30th, bringing one of Mexico's biggest tourist destinations to a standstill. Merchants said the coronavirus restrictions have dramatically reduced their income, especially as the April the 12th holiday season began. Acapulco's tourism secretary said last weekend that hotel occupancy fell 70%, the worst since Hurricane Ingrid and Storm Manuel. Federal forces patrol the tourist area to ensure that businesses are closed and that there are no crowds of tourists on public roads. Mexico has reported 1,890 cases of the novel coronavirus, of which 3 are in Acapulco.
Mexico's most powerful business lobbies said on April 6th that President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's plans to lift the Mexican economy out of a coronavirus-induced crisis were insufficient and more was needed to protect jobs and companies. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador unveiled his plan on April 5th, vowing to help the poor and create jobs, pledging that Mexico would create 2 million jobs in the next 9 months and boost small business and housing loans. He also vowed to tighten public sector austerity to avoid debt. Meanwhile, small companies and workers are asking the government to offer aid plans to local entrepreneurs to avoid the closure of companies and massive layoffs. Governments worldwide have unleashed unprecedented spending pledges to minimize the damage to their economies from the coronavirus. Mexico heavily depends upon its tourism and service industries, which are already under intense strain. The national currency, the peso, has lost 10% of its value in as many days.
According to official reports, South Africa, now put out of work by the coronavirus lockdown, queued for food aid this week as the government and aid agencies tried to prevent a sharp economic downturn and mass job losses turning into hunger. In Gauteng province, which includes Johannesburg and the capital Pretoria, and is home to about 15 million people, some 54,000 unfortunate people whom the lockdown has rendered unable to make a living have been earmarked for food aid packages. Gauteng Acting Social Development Executive Council member Panzaya Lesufi stressed that this was an increase on an initial estimate of 20,000 people. In Pretoria South, a neighborhood in the sprawling Soweto township, residents on Tuesday, April the 7th, queued to receive packages of rice, ground maize, washing liquid, and white bread. A 3-week nationwide lockdown has been enforced in South Africa to help halt the spread of the coronavirus, but the move threatens to tip many struggling businesses and consumers over the edge after the country already fell into recession last year. Even before the lockdown, around 30% of South Africans were out of work.
South Korean Public Corporation held an employment exam at outdoor football stadium on April 4th as part of social distancing measures to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. More than 100 of job seekers in face masks were seen sitting at a distance of 5 meters from each other at football field, which is about 6,600 square meters, for an entrance exam of Ansan Urban Corporation, according to the public enterprise. The corporation said they conducted the exam in the open air to avoid coronavirus, but also said they could not postpone new recruits anymore due to the economic crisis. South Korean companies are racing to secure lifelines as self-isolation across the country hits restaurants, airlines, hotels, and the entertainment industry in Asia's fourth largest economy. Late March, the country doubled a planned economic rescue package to 100 trillion won, amounting to $80 billion to save companies hit by the coronavirus.
The Red Cross delivered aid kits with food and essentials to vulnerable groups affected by the coronavirus on Thursday, April the 9th in Barcelona in Spain. According to the coordinator of the Red Cross Catalonia, Enric Morris, the most vulnerable groups are people who are already in a difficult economic situation before the health crisis, mainly women who work as cleaners and who have lost their jobs. Morris said the forecast for April, even though very difficult to foresee, is that demand for aid will increase by 200%. Aid beneficiaries in Barcelona also include self-employed people who have not been able to work due to lockdown measures in place since March the 14th in Spain. The health ministry said Spain's number of daily coronavirus deaths slowed on Thursday after 2 days of increases as 683 people succumbed in 24 hours, taking the total to 15,238. It added overall detected cases rose to 152,446 from 146,690 on Wednesday, April the 8th.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other top government figures will take a 30% salary cut this year, India's Information and Broadcasting Minister Prakash Javadekar said on April 6th as the country tackles the coronavirus outbreak and its impact on the economy. Prakash mentioned that besides, the president, vice presidents, and all the governors have also decided to take a 30% cut in their salaries for a year. The money will go to the country's consolidated fund, and the salary cut comes into effect from April. As a part of the government's efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19, the Union Cabinet, chaired by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has decided not to operate Members of Parliament's Local Area Development Scheme for 2 years. These funds will be used to strengthen the government's efforts in managing the challenges and adverse impact of COVID-19 in the country. Modi has imposed a 3-week lockdown to halt the spread of the virus, but it has left millions without jobs and many of the more vulnerable sections of society struggling for food and shelter. On Monday, there were 3,851 active coronavirus cases in India, as well as 111 deaths from the disease in the country to date, according to figures from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Many members of parliament, members of Legislative Assembly, Lok Sabha speakers are donating to the Prime Minister's Relief Fund for this cause. With financial aid and strict policies, the country is hoping to handle the situation.
This has been Business Review, your daily source for the most critical stories in the financial world. Tune in next time for the latest financial news impacting the world economy.